As Jesus sent his disciples out to minister, he cautioned them, "Behold, I am sending you out as sheep in the midst of wolves, so be wise as serpents and innocent as doves." That call still applies today. Churches and ministries operate in a world where cultural expectations are shifting and legal pressure is growing. And while your calling hasn't changed, the risks around how you live it out have. That's why it's so important that your documents and policies clearly reflect your biblical convictions. When legal questions arise about your hiring, your facility use, or how you operate, the first thing courts often examine is your governing documents. In its 2024 American Worldview Inventory, the Cultural Research Center at Arizona Christian University reported that 92% of Americans have a syncretistic worldview, which is defined as a fusion of disparate ideologies, beliefs, behaviors, and principles culled from a variety of worldviews into a customized blend. This shows that the majority of Americans draw from multiple sources for their worldview and basis of truth. The same study revealed that only 4% of Americans adhere to biblical theism, and those self-identifying as Christians on the survey, only 6% articulated a biblical worldview, while 92% express a syncretistic perspective. These results show Christians' increased acceptance of multiple worldviews and are a litmus test of our need for the church to boldly proclaim the gospel and stand for truth. Key areas like life and freedom of speech, areas in which we live out our religious freedom, are under attack. Our culture is in need of ministries like yours to carry out their missions boldly, and it's vital that your ministry is able to pursue kingdom work effectively. That's where your core documents come in. As we dive into protecting your ministry from a legal standpoint, it's important to keep in mind two principles. Principle number one, ultimately, it's not your job to protect your ministry. This should be both freeing and encouraging. In Matthew 16:18, Jesus says, "And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." Christ builds his church, and he sustains it, because he is the one who holds all things together. We don't need to be anxious, but can minister with a confident and faithful presence. Principle number two, while Christ sustains the church, God has given us a stewardship over this ministry. For example, Paul repeatedly refers to his ministry as stewardship, and stewardship requires wisdom. We are called to good stewardship, and we are called to be wise as we engage with the world around us. This call should lead you to thoughtfully consider your ministry's core documents and how they protect and shape your mission. We'll discuss practical ways to protect your ministry using 4 different categories: deliberation, definition, dissemination, and discipline. We'll start with deliberation. Frequently, when interacting with Church and Ministry Alliance members, we receive a request that goes something along these lines: "Please give us the legal document we need to protect ourselves." This demonstrates a common paradigm we've created: spiritual work on one side and legal, clerical, and administrative work on the other. What we truly desire for our members is to see the documentation of your ministry, bylaws, statements, policies, and other things, as an opportunity to cultivate your Christian identity. Rather than just a chore or a task to be accomplished, this is an invitation to take time and wrestle with key questions you will face as an organization, to clearly articulate your values and operating principles, and to invite the Creator into the process of shaping these documents. This integration also bolsters your legal protection, helping your Christian identity show up on paper. A cogent, well-developed religious identity helps solidify your legal standing as a religious organization. Often, our members are seeking a template or key phrases to integrate into their documents. But the truth is, there are no silver bullets or magic words. A well-thought-out description of how a church and ministry will govern their affairs and approach certain issues will increase protection against government intrusion and provide you with a foundation for carrying out your ministry within your community. We encourage you to spend time in deliberation, contemplating, praying, reading scripture, and working together as ministry leaders to gain clarity on your organizational perspective on key doctrinal issues. An important exercise in this process is to think through different scenarios and decide how your organization would respond. For example, if a non-member couple were to call and ask to use your building for a wedding, how would you respond? Do you have a policy in place to back up your response? Or what if a church member were to start a child care center for the local neighborhood and request to use your church's facilities? This process of deliberation is one of self-description. Second, definition. So what does the self-description look like? Well, this comes in definition, in defining your organization's beliefs, policies, and expectations through 8 core key documents. Number 1, your mission statement. A carefully thought through mission statement is key to ministry readiness. This statement should clearly articulate your ministry's purpose. Often it's easy to gloss over a mission statement, but it is in thinking through key questions such as why does the ministry exist? What does it seek to accomplish? Whom does it seek to serve that the true hard work happens? The rest of your core documents will flow from your mission statement. Number 2, your statement of faith. A statement of faith should be a foundational document for every ministry. This statement expresses the ministry's core religious beliefs and serves as the backbone of the organization's policies and procedures. Once articulated, it can help preserve the doctrinal unity and integrity of the organization. It will also help evidence the sincerity of the ministry's religious beliefs if challenged in a lawsuit. As you're writing your statement of faith, you'll want to consider incorporating statements on marriage, sexuality, and gender identity. These issues are divisive and heated in our culture today. Clearly outlining your organization's views on each will help establish a firm legal footing and could avert future crises should an issue arise in one of these key areas. 3, statement of final authority. The statement of final authority serves as a buffer when doctrinal disputes arise, clearly identifying the source of authority for your organization and the final interpreter of those authorities. In identifying your organization's final interpreter, you'll also be identifying the individual or group who can articulate the organization's stance on divisive topics should the need arise. Number 4, religious employment practices. As you think through religious employment practices, you want to begin by developing a Christian philosophy of employment. Be careful to articulate the requirements of employees both functionally and spiritually. Think through different roles and what they require. For example, the role of a pastor is going to be different from a janitor, but overarching principles will remain the same. Number 5, job descriptions. While religious employers have religious protections, you'll need to be mindful of how you describe the work being done by your employees, as granting broad ministerial descriptions to non-ministerial roles can create issues should litigation occur. Number 6, appropriate affirmations. To further solidify your organization's footing as a religious organization, it is best practice to have those involved in the work of the ministry, both volunteers and employees, sign an affirmation agreeing with your core beliefs. While we highly recommend that you require volunteers and employees to sign a statement of faith, you typically won't need a contractor to agree to your statement of faith in order to solicit their services. Where it starts to get complicated is when your organization allows outside groups to use your facilities. There are too many variables at play to provide a broad generalization as to whether or not outside groups should sign an affirmation to your statement of faith. But if you run into a question regarding an outside group using your facilities, our attorneys are here to help. Number 7, code of conduct. Next, you'll want to consider what expectations you have of employees, of volunteers, of members, of others. This should address key areas such as sexuality, conduct relevant to your context, for example, respect for authority, stealing, cheating. Within your code of conduct, it is vital to warn that you reserve the right to dismiss a stakeholder for any reason. As you work through the code of conduct, a key question to ask here is how does this document flow from and relate to your belief statements? Finally, 8, facility use policy. For ministries with facilities, a church building, a campground, or schools, it is important to consider stewardship of your facility, not just from a financial standpoint, but from a holistic standpoint. Consider key questions such as what is the primary purpose of your facility? What are acceptable uses? How would you condition third-party uses? As always, consider how your philosophy flows from and shapes your sincerely held religious beliefs. Now we'll move to dissemination. You've gone through the hard work of establishing your biblical reasoning for your policies and creating strong documents in line with your faith. Well, what happens next? You'll need to make these documents appropriately known and available, keeping in mind that not all documents need to be available to everyone. For example, your statement of faith will most likely be public and very available, but a job description is not always going to be publicly available, although you want to make sure and make it very clear to the employee with that particular role what their job description is. For job descriptions especially, you want to be careful to articulate the religious nature of the job position. One of the complaints frequently cited in ministerial exception cases is that the employees claim they didn't know they had religious job responsibilities. Next, discipline. Be certain to follow through on the commitments in your documents. Sometimes organizations spend time writing strong policies, but then they give more exceptions than they apply the policy. Enforcement of the policy then becomes the exception. If this is the case, then you either start abiding by the policy or change the policy to match your practice. Be disciplined to stay consistent with the direction you have set for the organization. Our culture is at a pivotal moment, but the ministries like yours are uniquely positioned to respond with clarity, courage, and faithfulness. As you assess your core documents, remember this is more than a legal exercise. It's part of stewarding your mission. If questions come up, and they will, we're ready to help. Our team of Church and Ministry Alliance attorneys is here to provide guidance tailored to your ministry. Let's keep the doors open for gospel ministry together.